Good morning, everyone. That was my husband, Sean, and our daughter, Sage. How many of you, by a show of hands, have been really hurt before? Whether it's mentally, physically, or emotionally? I know we can all relate to that. I have been hurt. I have been mentally hurt, physically hurt, and emotionally hurt. And I want to tell you about that time. My husband, Sean, and our daughter, Sage, and I were living in Caldwell at this time. We had been in Boise for the night and got into our car, all of us with our seatbelts on, Sean driving the speed limit, taking the freeway back home to Caldwell. We were only a half mile from our exit. We were hit head-on by a drunk driver, and my family was killed. The drunk driver's truck, after he hit us as he was going 98 miles an hour, went over the top of our car. Something on his truck hooked onto the roof of our car, and that ripped it off. That tore my husband's seatbelt. Sean was ejected from the car. His cause of death was an open head injury. And the police report said he skid 100 to 150 feet down the freeway, ripping up the left side of his face and body. Another police report said his body was mangled beyond recognition. Sage, at only 5 months and 9 days, lay dead in her car seat as she was killed from a closed head injury. Her brain hit against her skull so hard, killed my daughter right away. Just this last month, my baby would have turned 14 years old. Not a day has gone by that my heart has not ached, as I've missed both of them. I did not know before this that it was possible for our heart to actually ache. I did not know that was a real thing. I'd heard of a heartache before, but I did not know our heart had the capability of actually aching, but it does. After the drunk driver's truck went over our car, his truck ended up rolling, smashing the drunk driver's side, his left arm, about right here at the forearm, was so severely cut that it was just hanging by the skin. So he was taken to the hospital, and the doctor took it all the way off. So he obviously doesn't have a left hand anymore. I suffered a traumatic brain injury from that major force of his truck hitting our car, caused my brain to hit against my skull, and it bled in 2 different spots and got really swollen. And I immediately went unconscious and into a coma that I remained in for almost 3 weeks. During the very first week, the doctors doubted my survival, told my parents, she's probably not going to make it. I was hooked up to life support. I was not able to breathe on my own. The doctor continued, if I did live, I'd be mentally and physically disabled because the brain trauma was so bad. My parents, honestly, didn't know how to pray. They told me, do we pray that she recovers and is this disabled daughter that has to live the rest of her life without her family, or do we pray that you go? They decided to pray that God's will would be done. After those 3 weeks in a coma, I started making improvements, opening my eyes, coming out of this, becoming a little bit responsive. If someone were to say my name, I would look. But that took some time to fully come out of the coma and be fully there. I had to relearn how to do things that I learned how to do when I was a child, like walk. I had to learn how to eat again. I had to relearn what things were called what people's names were. My brain had forgotten all of those things it once knew. The day finally came that the doctor told me, Natalie, we've told you we're in a car wreck. Sean and Sage were in the car with you, and now they are in heaven. Those are words I never imagined hearing in my lifetime. Becoming a widow when I was 23 years old, only raising my daughter for 5 months and 9 days. Who plans for that in their life? I didn't. After I got out of the hospital, and as the doctor said over and over, complete miracle, medically speaking, I shouldn't be alive. People would ask me, aren't you so excited? Not so excited. They would say, isn't it amazing that your life is a miracle? Aren't you so happy to be alive? You are so lucky. And I didn't know how to respond to that. I'm so lucky to be alive. Great, I get to live with this heartache for the rest of my life. Yay me. I'm so lucky to be alive. I have to figure out what to do with my life now. Yay me. I couldn't reply back to them, yes, I'm so glad to be alive. No, that was not my reaction at all. I had lost everything I had ever wanted. Doctor's orders after I got out of the hospital was to live with my parents. I couldn't live on my own. I wasn't stable. So I lived with them for about 1.5 years. During that time, the sentencing for the drunk driver was held. This man was 31 years old when his life changed because of the choice he made to drive drunk. I was nervous. I had anxiety of going to the sentencing and actually seeing what this man looked like. As the sentencing continued on, and we were nearing the end of the 6 hours, he was charged with 2 counts of vehicular manslaughter, 1 count of aggravated driving, which is all the injury to me. The judge gave him 5 years for my husband's death, 5 years for our daughter's death, and 3 years for aggravated driving. A 13-year fixed sentence and a 40-year maximum. Of course, I was asked by family, I was asked by friends, I was asked by complete strangers, still am to this day. So did you think that was long enough? Were you happy with the sentence the judge gave? And my answer is no. How can you put a number of years on my husband's life and my daughter's life? I can't say, yep, 5 years for Sean, that sounds just like enough. That's perfect. Of course not. There's no number of years that is long enough. But justice, was served. He has now hit his 13 years. He went before the probation officers, and they actually have given him 5 more years. So that is now a total of 18 years that this man will serve in prison. But he has a lifetime sentence. He doesn't remember the night he killed my family. He doesn't remember making the choice to drive drunk. But he has been very remorseful. He has been very sorry. I heard him stand up in the courtroom that day and tell us, excuse me, my voice is sounding weirder now than it normally does. He told us how sorry he was and he wished he could take it back and would do anything to take away my pain. And I really believed him. And I thought, I think I might be forgiving him. This is feeling good. But after 9 months after the sentencing, I received a letter letting me know that he'd written the judge asking her to reduce his sentence because he missed his family so much. I have never in my life been more hurt and angry than I was when I read that letter. And I thought, what a liar. What a liar. Standing and telling me you would do anything for me. He even said he'd cut off his other arm to try to relieve my pain. But he won't serve 13 years in prison? Wow. The judge denied it and said, no, you'll serve the whole time. But that didn't take away the anger. I still continued to hate this man, and I still chose to not forgive him. I realized I hadn't. Those good feelings I was feeling in the courtroom, that was not forgiveness that I was experiencing. I wanted to hate this man. I wanted him to try to I wanted to try to cause as much pain in his life because I was going to be hurting the rest of mine. He didn't deserve anything good from me or from anyone. So as time continued on, and again, trying to figure out what to do with my life, I went back to college. I'd already done 2 years before I met my husband, Sean, and decided to get my bachelor's degree. It was in that very last semester of college, so now about 6.5 years, 6.5 to 7 years after my car crash happened, that my heart was starting to change. And this change was happening because I was feeling so out of control. I was realizing I was letting this man still be in control. He had control that night when he crashed into us. We were out of control. There's nothing we could have done different. I was still giving him control of my life as I was choosing to hate him. I didn't feel any peace in my life. I wasn't happy. And I decided I was going to be in control of my life again. There's a quote by Louis B. Smedes, and he said, "To forgive is to set a prisoner free and realize the prisoner was you." When I first heard that quote, before I had decided to change my feelings toward him, I thought that didn't apply to me. That's a great quote for someone else, but he doesn't deserve my forgiveness, so I'm going to continue to hate him. But now as the time passed and I realized I really am hurting myself. I'm not hurting him at all by not forgiving him. It's not doing a dang thing to him. If I want a happy rest of my life as much as I can have happiness, I have to forgive him. I prayed. I worked so hard toward this forgiveness. I wrote him a letter as he was in prison, and I asked him if he still communicates with his family, and if so, how, what's that like? He wrote me back right away a 4.5-page letter telling me he gets letters from his boys in pictures. They draw pictures. His youngest son was 1 month old, and his oldest was 5 years old. So they have grown up knowing Dad in prison. After I got that 4.5-page letter and reading over and over and over again how sorry he was, I decided to write him back. And each time, we were now writing back about 4 or 5 times, each time those letters came and went, this darkness that I had once let consume me, my life was getting a little brighter. And after having this realization that this was happening because of this contact with this drunk driver, I asked him through a letter if he'd feel comfortable with a visit. And he said, he answered back, said, "I would love that," and included a visitor application form. And I filled that out, and all of this is another long story, but I miraculously got approved as a visitor. As the victim, there's no way I should have gotten approved, so that slipped through the cracks is what I was told by the prison. But I got in to visit him, again, God's hand completely in that, and I got to sit across from a table from him. And before he said a word, I wanted to be the first to speak. And I said so very sincerely, wholeheartedly, "I want you to know I forgive you." That is the best thing I've ever done in my life. Not all of us may have a chance to tell someone that has hurt us that we forgive them. But forgiveness is what happens in our heart. I knew I was no better than this man. Have I hurt other people in my life? Yes. Of course, not to the extent he has hurt me. But that doesn't matter. I need to forgive if I'm ever going to be happy. It's the best gift I have given myself. I didn't forgive him for him. I didn't do that to try to make his life better. I did that to make my life better, and it worked. My life is better. Of course, every single day I still miss my husband and my daughter. Sage's birthday is a very hard day for me, and I have to forgive the drunk driver again. I hate him so bad on those days. Christmas and Thanksgiving, all of these family holidays, it is still tough and hard. And forgiveness for me has not been a singularity. I haven't done it just one time. I've had to do it over and over again. And I'm glad I have continued to make the choice to do that, because I am happy today. I have peace in my life today because I have made the choice and will continue for the rest of my life to make the choice to forgive. And I encourage all of you to make that same choice and see the happiness and peace it'll bring into your life. Thank you.